Hello everyone, Panchoman here from the Zap team. Welcome back to our series on how to create a community airport for Tower Simulator 3. This is episode 4. We're going to talk about the airport file part 2. I'm going to start by giving you some updates and corrections to prior videos. We'll talk about how to finish up the airport file with adding gates, and then we'll talk about how to create a terminal file and also how to validate some of the things that we did in the airport file. So let's get started. Okay, here we are. We're back in Bogota, Colombia in Unity. A couple of updates. One thing from the terrain video that's come to light is that painted holes are not supported by Tower Simulator 3, so any holes that you paint that terrain will still show up in Tower Simulator 3. It kind of ignores the painted holes. So that's something to be aware of, and so generally we wouldn't recommend doing that. Instead, you can just completely flatten the terrain on the outer layer. Another thing here, last time we had set up our runways and our taxiways. I learned a really cool trick from FBI.gov. And basically the game likes it when the runways are directly on top of each other, so that way there's no confusion in the game engine whether it's an intersecting runway or not. It can be very challenging to line up the runways perfectly on top, and so FBI showed me this neat trick. Here we've got runway 14 left. I have this not selected here, and I can make sure that runway 32 right, this knot here, is the same as this knot here location wise. So we know this is the first knot of runway 14 left, which will be the last knot of runway 32 right. And the way I could make sure they're the same is by making sure these numbers are all copied over to the position settings of runway 32 right. Now you could copy and paste this, but the better way is to actually hit the dots here, go to copy and world transform. So here you can pick position, rotation, or scale, or you could just pick everything by world transform. I can go to the same knot here on 32 right, and I can paste world transform, and I will make sure it's perfectly the same. And then again, I can go back to the other knot on runway 14 left, and you can see, here's a cool trick. If I want to get to where this knot is, I just hit F on my keyboard. That's the F for focus button. That will take me right to that knot or whatever item I have selected. Here I'm going to again copy world transform and go to runway 32 right. The same knot is selected here, and I will paste it, and that makes sure that everything is perfectly lined up. Let's do the same thing for the other runway. Here I'm going to just press the knot, press F, it brings me right over. Let's copy world transform, and for runway 32 left, making sure it's the same knot. See, I didn't pick the same knot. Here's the same knot, and we're going to paste that. And you see it just fixes that alignment ever so slightly. And then let's go to the other side. We'll go ahead and copy world transform, and we'll make sure it's the same knot here. Yeah, see, it's picking the wrong one. And we will paste that. And you can see the runways are perfectly aligned. So this was a really helpful tip from FBI.gov. So thank you very much. That's really makes life easy. Alright, so those are the updates. Now let's go ahead and start setting up our gates. So let's just jump right here in the middle, and there's a problem right away to talk about. So here, one gate, this gate here, can only be connected to one taxiway. So this middle taxiway is going to be frankly useless because these taxiways, these gates will not work. The plane can only back out onto the closest taxiway. So we're going to have to fix this here on gate 19. We're going to select all the knots here that are not helpful, delete, and it's going to be like that. And so then you have a design choice in terms of what to do with this metal taxiway. You could choose to just delete it outright. You could leave it as a taxiway that they could, you could put like exits through here where they could transition onto that taxiway. You could connect it here, so there's kind of a loop with the middle one accessing the loop. Here, I think the easiest thing is going to be just to remove this taxiway because it's really not going to be helpful with the other taxiways so close to each other. So I'm just going to go ahead and start taking this out. And now we could say, hey, maybe this taxiway just curves here. And actually, looking at this, I think that's how it is. I don't really see a taxiway lined. So instead, what I can do is there is a curve here, but there's no curve here. So I can take this one and actually curve it into this. So that might be, I think, the play here. Let's delete that and that. Let's extend this curve, taxiway 68, into echo. Always capital, otherwise the game will lose its mind. Kind of denode it a little bit. And maybe we can extend it kind of along this curve here. Bring this in alignment. And then we can use this one to continue the curve this way. Actually, we might need, I don't think all planes are going to be able to use this. We probably do need a straight on one. So I'll probably do a straight on one and then these two curved ones. If that gets too complicated, we can just back out and leave it kind of the way it was before. I'm seeing if maybe we can just straighten it out a little bit to get that same result. This might be something that we just test in the game and figure out what's going on. This is very lumpy bumpy here, so I'll just clean this up really quick. Much cleaner. Alright, so let's we'll have to clean these up. The nice thing about what OSM to Airport does is it's importing the name of all these taxiways here, which makes life very easy. So, and they're usually fairly correct, so you might have to reference a little bit just to make sure that you're putting in the correct gate numbers, but for the most part it's usually like very correct with putting in the gates in. That's why it's such a great tool. So thank you, Curated Pile, for all your hard work on that tool. So here we go, just cleaning these up. Now, one thing to note is when data is imported from OSM to Airport, it tends to put a knot where these two meet. This will create an error in the game because it will think that this is connected to two taxiways, and so it'll spit an error out. So you actually have to delete these knots that are right where, and you can see this just needs to be deknotified, right? Like this is a lot of knots. So deleting the ones with the knots works just as fine, but now it's not going to throw an error. You want to make sure these are still connected, so you might just have to move them slightly and adjust them. But you know, you have to make sure that a knot does not exist at the junction of the taxiways, otherwise it will create an issue. Just learned this the hard way working on a different airport, so delete those. So it brought these out of connection, that's okay, we can pull these in. When you're making a gate, it really does not need to be more than 3 knots. Like 1 knot for entry and then a middle knot if it needs to curve. And this segment here is going to be the alignment of the plane. Here we didn't Photoshop everything, so it's helpful for setting this up so you can just align like the line. So if I want the plane to be more parked at an angle like this, it can still come in this way, but at this knot it'll turn and it'll park itself along this line, so I can adjust the way that they park, and so the satellite imagery can be very helpful to make sure that they're parking the way they should. There, we can adjust this. Now this looks like a larger gate, and probably we would want this pulled up more. I don't know why the jetway is so long, but clearly we can see the marking is probably for like a heavy gate. And so let's talk about that as well. When you are putting in these gates, you'll need to add what kind of gate it is and the type of, and if it needs a jetway or not. So for example, let's see if we can select all of these. And let's see. Okay, here we go. So just selecting all of these to show you. If I want to add jetways in, we go to terminal type. Don't pick small, pick medium or large. For most airports, large is better. It creates these long taxiways that better fits. Now here, some of these are heavy gates and some of these are narrows, so the way you set that, so like these 3 look like they're going to be narrow, so terminal size limit, we'll set that to medium. And again here, this one look like they're going to be medium, this one as well, medium. And then these outer ones look like they are set up for heavies. So for heavies, I don't think any jumbos fly into Bogota, Colombia, as far as I know. So again, what's that? Heavy, terminal type, large. The nice thing is you can just select all. So for example, if I know that, you know, everything from here all the way to here is going to be a gate that needs a jetway, I can select a whole bunch of gates and give them the large gates. So remember, type is the jetway that will spawn. So for remote stands, non-jetway ones, you leave it empty, and for ones that and then pick medium or large, and then size limit is the actual plane that's allowed at that gate. So you can just select all and pick them. So something here to note is here we have kind of a hybrid gate where there is like, it can be 1 heavy or 2 narrows. You have to be careful with these because what will happen is this is where you'll run into issues if you try to allow these gates that can be very close to each other. you might run into issues where the plane hitboxes don't work, and then you get planes spawning very close to each other. So sometimes you might just need to make an executive decision like, hey, you know, this gate is gonna just be 2 narrows, and maybe the one next to it can be just a heavy. You can leave it as a 3 gates, but you'll just have to be careful and see what the spawning characteristics are. So for example here, one thing is these cannot cross, so the gates cannot cross each other. They cannot connect to each other, so this would throw an error. So this has to come here, and we can say, hey, it's going to turn a little bit here. Like, it'll turn, you want to give it a nice 90 degree, and then it'll turn and come this way and pull up like this, but they cannot intersect. And then here's too many knots. You really never need more than 3 knots for a gate. Most gates and professional ones will just be 2 knots, 1 in and 1 out, or 1 at the beginning and 1 at the end. Here's an issue where the knot is not going to, this connection is too sharp. So here I would bring it in and make it like a 90 degree so that the plane will be able to make the turn. Then you can just adjust this. Let's say here's the line, so you can use the satellite line. I'm going to bring this to about where the plane will stop. I think where the nose wheel will stop is correct. Now for these turn ones, these I do not recommend. It really should just be straight on. So you're going to just delete everything in the middle, and it should just be a straight on. And the reason is that the behavior when they pull back from the gate, the plane will kind of come like this, it'll do this curve, and then it'll do an immediate flip. So the better thing to do is not to have these curved gate entries, and to just keep it straight on like that. And then again here, this is going to be too close. It might be close enough where the game just won't spawn, but if they're a little bit further away, the game might accidentally spawn 2 planes, and then you run into that issue. So you might have to make some executive decisions. Are you going to try the 3 gates and see how it is? There's many airports, like I think Toronto does this, Bangkok does this, and a couple of airports where they do put 2 narrows and a heavy in the middle and let the game engine figure it out. It works sometimes it creates planes that are too close to each other. So, or you can just decide, I'm going to put 2 narrows here and I'm going to put a heavy over there. So just, you have to adjust this to kind of the airport that you're doing, what you expect for the traffic and the schedule, things like that. I'll show you something here. So this one goes all the way around in a circle, which is just crazy. So if I was to leave it like this, you'd see this one is backwards. So the arrows are pointing the other way. This would be a non-functioning gate. So the way you fix this is you click it and you hit flip row direction. If you click it and nothing happens like this, it's just that the rendering has not changed. Sometimes if you move it, it'll flip back to being the correct orientation because it's re-rendering. If not, if that doesn't happen either, you hit flip, nothing happens. In Airfield Editor, you can save roads and reload, and it'll flip the correct orientation to the correct way. But a lot of times if you just move the knot, it'll correct itself. So that's something to do. So you'll just have to go through and kind of design this the way you want. Are you going for something busier? Or are you going to go for this like 3 setup and see if things are spaced okay where they're not going to park on top of each other? Or are you going to just leave it as narrows? That's a design decision for you to make. Here's an example where if this one was going to come in, you can see the angle is kind of like this, so I can put a knot here, not that one, put a knot here and actually adjust this, and say, hey, the plane's coming in like this and the parking is going to be like this, can't cross the other one. And then you can decide where the entry point is going to be for this gate. Do you want it coming off this one or this one? So you have some freedom to build this how you want, and like how you would, want things to go. Remember that planes will push back along the green all the way to the end of the green. Where the green meets the yellow taxiway is where the plane will finish its pushback and turn in the direction it's being told. So here the plane would push all the way along the green. When it hits here, it'll either turn to face this way if there's a path that way, which there isn't, or it'll turn to face this way. Here, this one will push back all the way here and then turn to face this way or this way. So you have to decide how you want this to look, and actually I think the other line made more sense. So I will probably leave it like that. So that's how you adjust the OSM generated ones. You'll need to clean up the knots that exist at the gate intersections, and you'll need to decide, you'll need to take out the curves, keep them straight, decide what you're going to do with the doubles and the ones that are very close to each other. This airport in particular has a lot of gates where they can support one heavy or two narrows, so you'll just have to decide what to do with those.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Alright, so we've gone in and adjusted all of these. I've done a combination of heavy only, some medium sharing the hybrid gates. I left a couple of them as fully hybrid, and some of the cargo ones I left as hybrid, so we'll just see how that goes. So far we've talked about adjusting gates, but how do we actually put in a gate? So here's this military area here that's used, and we'll have to figure out how we're going to lay this out. Certainly the game can't lay it out exactly the way that they do in real life. So some of the ways that things are parked here, the game will not like. So one of the things you have to think about while you're doing this is also when you get to the photoshopping step, what are you going to Photoshop, what are you going to use, and what are you not going to use. So there'll be some design decisions. These hangers here, if you put 3D hangers, they make excellent gates. If you're not going to put 3D hangers in, then probably not worth parking a plane on top of them. So there's some design decisions here. Another thing here will be how you're going to lay out the taxiway. So this is what OSM to Airport imported. This one is called CATAM. That's not going to work. Let's try maybe Zulu or something. If there's no Zulu here, yeah, we can just make it fictional Zulu. And then maybe we'll put another road in. So we'll need a new road. The way you do that is you go to Airfield Editor, add road, and it'll add a new road in. And let's just call this Zulu 1, let's say. Let's call this like a little Zulu area. And then we can maybe put something here that goes across like this maybe. And that'll be Zulu 1. Or maybe we'll curve it in. So let's see, actually I think the line is here, so let me just adjust this. I'll put it here so you can see, you can get creative with the way you set these up. So maybe we'll do something, looks like the taxiway line goes all the way up to here. They have some parking in the back there, so we can decide this looks like maybe a firefighting area. They're testing something, so we'll have to think about how we're going to lay that out. Let's just start putting some gates in. I think this, and then maybe we'll just extend Echo down into here to finish this. Looks like they're just parking here, but why not use it? These planes are going to get photoshopped out anyway, so again, a lot of design decisions. I like having more paths for planes to get in and out. Helps when things get congested. So the way you put these gates in, you go to new road, you draw your road, and planes will not be able to park backwards, so they'll need to be forwards. You're going to change the type to RT terminal, and you'll put the gate. I'll call these gates like M1 or so for military. So lowercase gate underscore capital M1. And then here's terminal size. Type will be empty size. Let's put heavies in here. You have like quad prop planes here. And then once we like how this looks, a neat trick here is to actually just duplicate this. So select the gate and I'll hit Control D. And now it's created gate M2. Now if I want to move this, I can't because the gate is selected, so there's no handle. So instead I'll shift click the two knots and then I can just slide this gate right over, and let's say the next plane can be here or so for heavy. One trick also, so you can just keep duplicating these and say I want to make, you know, M3. You can just keep going, and you can even duplicate multiple gates at the same time and move them. One thing I'll suggest here, this width is fairly useless. The game doesn't care about it, but it can be sometimes helpful just to like look at the width of things. Heavies are, I think, about like 50, and maybe jumbos are 60, so you could put like 50 or 45 and be like, hey, you know, maybe we should move this gate over a little bit. And so it can just be helpful for making sure like wingtip clearances and things are okay. So you can look in the aircraft CSV and actually look at like what are different widths, and that just helps with better spacing gates out when you're putting them in like this. Here I think I'm just gonna eyeball it, but yeah, this is when I learned that you could just duplicate these. I mean, that was a game changer because I was creating new roads and renaming them, and then Mike Freeze was like, dude, you can just duplicate them. And that was a mind-blowing moment for me. So definitely thank you, Mike. Makes my life so much easier. And you just bring these gates right in, duplicate them, and you can even duplicate a whole bunch of them. So for example, you could duplicate, we just did 1 through 5, duplicate, there we go, and then we can select them, the duplicated ones. Now they're going to be named all wrong because of, so let me go back, when they're selected, what you do is you open them all up, select the knots, deselect the gate, select the knots, deselect the gate, just do that. Now that I have them all selected, I can use my handle, bring them over, let's say we'll put them over here, something like that. And then now these are gonna need to be flipped because they're the other way, so I can just go and flip and flip, 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 and then now I put in 5 gates just like that. If I don't want to move each gate to flip it, I just go to Airfield Editor, save, reload, and now they're in the correct flipped position, and I just put those gates. Now one thing I didn't do is rename them, so if you duplicate multiple gates at once, they'll be sequentially numbered from the gate they were on. So this is 1 through 5, so this can't be 2 again because I'll have a duplicated gate, so you'll just have to adjust that. So and you know, this is just a very rough example of how to do it. Obviously these gates are not spaced well, so I'm gonna have to fix that. But you can put in gates like that and very quickly do it. You can get creative with this. For example, here you can, let's duplicate this. Here's 11, let's say, with like a alcove like this, you can bring the taxiway in, or you can just put your gate in like this, and then they just have a long way to back out. So we can, this guy can just kind of turn in like that, and then I can duplicate this and duplicate, then M12, and we'll just grab all the nuts, move them over. You could even put it on top, as long as they're not using the same area at the same time, it's okay. And then we'll just bring this around this way. So this is one way to do it. Another would be to just extend the taxiway. Just remember that they will push back until the terminal gate intersects with the taxiway. Alright, now that we're done with the airport file, one thing you can do just to validate that your airport file looks good is once you save it, if you hit pre-generate gates, any errors that exist, I'll show you again, any errors that exist, it'll come up. So here it says, this is garbage, road is not connected to runway, but it has a gate in November. Okay, so let's find November. Here's November. F to take us there. Okay, here it doesn't have a gate because the gate's here, but I bet I know it's the other side. Yep, okay, so this is our double gate situation, so that's okay, even though this doesn't connect all the way. We know that our gate is put there appropriately, so no errors, which is good. Alright, now that we have our terminal gates in and our airport file is good, we are going to build the terminal and frequency files. Really just the terminal files, but I'll show you how the frequency file can be built very quickly as well. Now, you could write the CSV by hand. It would be very painful, or I can show you how to do this in less than 5 minutes. Let's go ahead and create a folder. Here's our TS3 airports folder. Just create a new folder called SKBO. Let's go and test, and let's just copy these things over for now in SKBO. So we've just brought everything over from test. We don't really need their picture. Let's go to databases, default, and we'll delete test.airport. We don't need all this other stuff, but really what we care about here is the frequency and terminal files and the airport file. So let's go find our airport file. Here's airport HD, airports, SKBO, copy the airport file, paste it here. Now we're going to use a tool called TS3 Frequency Visualizer. It's a free tool. You can get it on the Fielder Discord and user edits. I've got that here. Let's open it up. It looks like this, and the way you use it is first you do open. You're going to find the airport. Here's SKBO, databases, default. Now it's asking for the frequency file. Here it is. Now it asks for the terminal file. Here it is, and the airport file. Here it is. It's going to go ahead and load everything up. This is importing the frequencies from TIST and the terminals from TIST. As you can see, really not what we need, but we're going to go ahead and adjust it. So the way it works here is frequencies are on the left, terminals are on the right, and the gates are all the way on the right side. So we can just remove these for now. and we can just start building our terminals. So for example, you can just do a new terminal here, click on it and type it in. Domestic. I think domestic is Avianca, but you know, we'll figure this out when we do our schedules. And to add the gates, we're just going to click and drag, and those are domestic gates. One cool thing here is if you hit this little A, that's auto validate. So when you click on something, it'll check to make sure everything validates, and now the gates that are selected now are green, meaning that they've been assigned. Let's go ahead and put in our international gates here. And we can do just catch all for now. And we'll pick our international gates again, click and drag. If you accidentally pick gates that you don't want, right click and drag, and it'll deselect them. Now, so we've selected international and domestic. Let's go ahead and take care of the rest. I'll just call these M gates for military gates, and we'll have to figure out what we're going to park there. Maybe some of our custom airlines can go in there. Well, that's picked. Let's go ahead and, you know what? This one, I forgot about that. Where is that? I forgot about this guy in the corner. I don't know if we're going to do anything with that. I didn't put the gates in there. Let's just call it G1, and we'll figure out what we're going to do with that later. Let's add our, we can do GA, catch all, GA, and throw in GA. And let's add cargo, and we'll do catch all cargo. And then just for testing purposes, we'll have to refine this as we figure out the schedule and what parks where. Alright, now we can see what's not picked. Alright, very easy visually. So right now, that area hasn't been selected. I think it's mostly maintenance, but yeah, we can again decide what parks there when we build our schedule. So now everything should be green if I've selected everything. Perfect. And then if I want to assign these to a frequency, we can do that. These are just TIST, so we'll just update that. So I've got everything here. So ground is actually 121.8, not much to change. We'll just adjust this here. And for ground, I'm going to give ground everything that's not a terminal, like a passenger terminal. Okay, what is this? This is tower. So tower is actually 118.1. That's a happy coincidence. Didn't make that up. So here we'll just select our 4 runways assigned to the tower. This is departure, Bogota 121.3. And here we can even call it Bogota departure. Actually, it's El Dorado departure. No, this is what you say, so I'll say departure. And then this is what I will type on the screen, El Dorado. Departure 121.3. To 1.3. And let's go ahead and add ramp. So I'll do frequency add, and we'll call it apron control because we're not in the US. Control and 121.6. Boom. And we'll assign it domestic and international. And so now this should be good to go. All our gates are assigned to a terminal. All our terminals are assigned to a frequency. We hit save, hope it doesn't crash, and then we should be good. So let's go ahead. Let's go back in TS3 airports. Let's find SKBO databases. Here's our frequencies. So looks great. Ground, this is what it writes. This is what you have to see. Oh, I did this wrong. So it should be, I got my order wrong. So writing is El Dorado, but you want to say departure. You don't want to say El Dorado departure. Apron control. And this is just a me thing. I like to do tower, then ground, then ramp. So I just rearrange them. But that's just a me thing. And we make sure there's one free line at the bottom and hit save. Well, that's good. Let's just check our terminals file. Yep. And looks great. Has everything. We'll have to, right now the M gates are not assigned anything and G1 is not assigned anything or maintenance. So as we build the schedule and figure out what we want to put where and things like that, this will evolve. But that's something for a different episode on scheduling. So for now, this is a this is the beginning of your terminal file and frequency file. So that's your airport file taken care of, your gates. We've made sure everything validates in Airport Editor, but we'll have to do some more testing, which we'll talk about in another video. And now we've got our terminal file and a frequency file ready to go. So that's the end of this video. We will see you on the next one.